Hello everyone, it's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. I hope that you all had an absolutely outstanding holiday weekend full of fun and extraordinary things. And so here we are, it's Tuesday and we're back to our daily practice. First and foremost, I want to apologize for checking out on you. I know that I've been away for the past week and a half, and yet while I have not had an online presence to share with you and remind you of the practice and different tools and strategies that we can use to navigate through the dynamics of our own life, I have absolutely been diligently practicing the spiritual laws of success, the tools and strategies that I've been sharing with you, because life is so dynamic and things have a tendency to shift, and the fact that we have these tools and strategies to practice helps us to navigate more easily and more efficiently through life when we experience some disturbances and turbulence and when things start to fall out of alignment. And that's really the practice of spirituality, our ability to navigate through these dynamics. And life is dynamic, so we have to recognize that this practice that we're doing, these tools, these strategies that you're learning about, that I'm sharing with you, are exactly that, tools and strategies to make the journey a little bit more palatable, a little bit more effective as we do journey, as things happen that could be unexpected, could be unfavorable, could be favorable. It could be a whole lot of things. And yet ultimately, we have to remember that life is dynamic. So that said, let me share with you where I've been. On Friday, August 24th, I was out of the office most of the day, and when I returned home, I walked into my home and I noticed that my plantation shutter was open and my chair had been moved away from the window. And I have a cat, a 20-pounder in fact. It's a big joke of my family since I'm so health and wellness minded. I seem to have big animals. Anyway, immediately when I saw this, I thought, oh, Oliver must have been chasing something. And because he's a big boy, he could absolutely leverage the window open. And if he got startled, he could definitely push the chair away from the window. And so I thought, oh, there must be something. And especially since living in South Florida, you know, we have tree frogs and we have lizards, and sometimes they make their way into the home. So I walk over to the window, and sure enough, there's a dead lizard there. And I kind of look at Oliver and I said, okay, you know, I know that you think this is a friend and you think this is a toy, and yet, you know, you got to be a little bit more gentle. Try not to kill him. So I closed the plantation shutter, I moved the chair back to where its original position was, and since I was starving, I made myself something to eat. When I finished eating, I sat down on the floor to meditate, and I meditated for an hour. And that meditation actually was one of the most peaceful meditations that I have had to date. As you know, I have been meditating. I'm a new meditator, so I've only been meditating since February, and each meditation experience is somewhat different. And this one was by far the most peaceful meditation practice that I have had to date. There was very little internal dialogue that was taking place. It was all stillness. It was very, very peaceful and very, very relaxing. So at the end of the hour, when I opened my eyes, I was very, very calm and very, very relaxed and actually energized. It was really very interesting. And I looked at the clock, and it was 7 p.m. And I knew that I needed to get ready to do some things. First of all, I wanted to go upstairs. I wanted to freshen up because I wanted to create the video for Friday for all of you. And I was planning to head to the Ritz-Carlton to watch my dance teachers compete in a professional competition. So I get up from my meditation. I go upstairs. I walk into my bedroom, and I'm standing in the entryway of my bedroom, and I notice that my armoire is open and that there's a sweatshirt on the floor. So immediately I think to myself, well, Oliver didn't do this. You know, he may have chased the lizard and opened up the plantation shutter and moved the chair. He certainly didn't open the armoire. And so as I'm taking in this information, I turn my head and I look, and on my bed, I see a few things. I see a feather duster. I see 2 earring backs. I see a pearl, and I see a jade bracelet that was from my mother that I don't wear very much because it pinches my wrist. And they were all sprawled out on my bed, and I'm thinking, well, what is this? You know, I'm like, this is weird. Like, who did this? You know, what is this about? And then my next thought was to look where these things came from. So I draw my conscious attention to my closet, which is open, to the shelf where where all of my jewelry is kept. And that shelf is completely bare. Everything that was housed on that shelf is now on the floor in the laundry basket beneath the shelf. And suddenly I am filled with panic, because now I realize that somebody was in fact in my home and I had been burglarized. Now, keeping in mind, I had been in my home for 2 hours before I even get wind of this. And I'm in a panic. So immediately, what do? I call, I didn't want to call 911 because there was nobody here in the home, and I needed to call the police. So I called the police and I set that in motion. Then my next call was to my parents to let them know what happened, and I fire off a few texts. And I am absolutely beside myself because I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, like somebody was in my home. Somebody came into my home uninvited, was rummaging through my things, was in my bedroom rummaging through my things, and this was unnerving to me. And ultimately, the fact that I had that meditation practice, it really kind of grounded me a lot more than I probably would have been grounded had I just walked and come upon this information without knowing or doing this ahead of time. I was in a much more centered place. I was visibly shaken. I was absolutely shaken. And yet I was able to process everything, and I was able to move things forward. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because this is an excellent example of an unanticipated event that could take place in anybody's life. Certainly, I didn't deserve this to take place. Nobody would deserve to have an intruder come into their home uninvited, go through their things, and take whatever they want from somebody else's home. I mean, nobody deserves that. And yet it happened. And I was here by myself to have to contend with all of that, which was somewhat unnerving. And the practice of the different spiritual laws of success, the practice of the different tools and strategies was what I clung to in that moment. It was what I needed to do to keep myself centered. So I'm sharing this with you today because this experience caused me to practice all of a varying degree of spiritual tools and strategies that I will share with you so that you will understand that practicing these tools and strategies is easy when things are going well. It's critical when things aren't going well because it's going to be the things that hold us together, the things that allow us to continue to process and allow us to continue to function without becoming unglued. So, of course, after I had an opportunity to process this, and the police are here, and now that my parents were here, and then there were some friends here, and certainly I wasn't alone through this process. And there were a lot of things to be grateful for. And yet what I'm going to do is take this story and put them under the umbrella of these different laws so that you can understand how this practice is so meaningful for us. So as it relates to Tuesday, since today is Tuesday, and we are practicing the law of cause and effect, I'm thinking to myself, well, whoa, I love this law, first of all. This is my favorite law. You all know that because this gives us a sense of empowerment. Things are going to happen. We're going to set things in motion that aren't always going to yield the best results. So immediately I'm thinking cause and effect. So I'm thinking, what did I do? What could I have done? Well, it wasn't what I did to cause this to happen. As it relates to cause and effect, if you read the post that I posted last week, cause and effect isn't just the choices we make to do something. Sometimes it has to do with the conscious choices that we make not to do something. And for the last 17 years, I made a conscious decision not to install an alarm system in my home. And that absolutely contributed to the fact that my home was burglarized. I have to own that. I have to own that. And I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, That knowing that I could do something different empowers me. And certainly it is an action that I did take, and now my home is alarmed. So I have a deterrent to prevent this from happening in the future. Yet for the last 17 years, I consciously chose not to do that, opening myself up to this event to take place all these years later. Okay? So that's cause and effect. Now I was actually sharing this story with a girlfriend of mine, and she's like, that's crap. Nobody deserves this. It still falls within the parameters of cause and effect. My decision not to alarm my place for the past 17 years contributed to the fact that my home was burglarized. That was one thing. The other conscious choice or decision that I made that also contributed to the fact that my house was burglarized was this: that the window that I believe the intruder came in through, there is no landscaping in front of that window. I live in a townhome, and the HOA is responsible for doing all of the landscaping in the common areas. Well, I've shared with you before that I love to create beauty and peacefulness and Zen spaces for myself, and being outside with my patio is a prime example of that. And I've also taken the liberty to do that common area in front of my property and in front of my kitchen window because I didn't like the way it looked, and the HOA wasn't doing anything about it. So I took it upon myself, using my own time, using my own resources, to beautify my own space. Now, I was consciously aware that there was no landscaping in front of the window that was burglarized. And because I don't see that landscaping, and because I don't walk toward that part of my home, it was a conscious decision on my part not to install any type of hedge there. When I did approach the HOA to do this, and I had several years ago, there's no money in the budget, and I understand that. And yet I didn't do what I could have done to put a hedge there to stop an intruder from walking to that window and shimmying it open. So those were two things that relate to cause and effect that impacted me and set in motion the sequence of events that I just experienced on Friday the 24th of August. So that is an excellent example of a real life thing that could happen as a result of a conscious decision that we choose to make or not make, something to do or not do, and that is critical. So today is Tuesday. We're practicing the law of cause and effect. Be very mindful and very conscious of the decisions and choices that you're making, knowing that things that you set in motion or don't set in motion today could come back, whether they're tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, a decade from now, or almost 2 decades from now, could potentially come back and have an effect that is undesirable for us. So please be keeping that in mind as we go through the day. Have an absolutely outstanding day, and I will be back tomorrow to share with you how this experience related to tomorrow's practice, which is the law of least effort. Have a great day, everyone.